Okay, this is a question that I have often been asked, which is how do you become a player who dominates with your weapon? All right. And I'm sure many of you have asked yourself that question. You probably looked in the mirror, played it over inside your head. What can I do to become a player who uses and dominates with my weapon, right? Now, some players think it's about hitting one great shot. Some people think it's about hitting hard, and the more power and the more pace you can put on the ball, pure power. But it is about much more than that. Think about it. Technique is a myth if you don't have the guts to use it. Dominating with your weapon is about, or isn't about, one specific shot you can hit. It's about a toolkit that leads the point eventually down the road to your weapon every single time. Every time. You want to have some aura, you want to have some myth, some rumor, and opponents have to feel the presence that you project, right? So here is a blueprint to turn yourself into that type of player. 4 pillars, 10 minutes to understand the concept, and a brand new career after that. Pillar number 1, let's call this the forge. So what you want to do is pressure proof your shot. Right now, for most people, their weapon is a luxury. They can use it when they're winning. They can use it when they're relaxed. They can use it when they're leading. But when the score is 4-4, deuce, your opponent is playing well, the crowd is silent, then your weapon shrinks, it tightens up, and it becomes a liability. You don't become dominant in the match. You become dominant in the dirt, in the grind, on the practice court, right? So when you're practicing, don't just rally. Do drills where you have to hit 10 bombs in a row to a target. Miss one, start over. Miss one, start over again. Why? Because when the pressure is on and you've already hit 9 perfect balls, the 10th is the hardest shot in tennis. Just think about anyone who's played a grinder or a pusher. They make you hit that big forehand 5 or 6 times, and that's when it breaks down, right? So you have to take it to the forge, beat it, melt it again and again, so that you're very comfortable with hitting the 9th one, the 10th one, right? So championship point, break point, you've got to practice away the fear of missing. You've got to become addicted to resetting and going for it again, right? Make your weapon so automatic that your brain does not need to be involved. Let your muscle memory kill the doubt. When you step on the court, your weapon does not need your permission to fire. It is the baseline. It is the automatic shot that you're going to go to under pressure, you're going to reach for in order to get things done. Pillar number 2, let's call this the architect of the system. You got to create a system. You cannot win with a weapon if you are just waiting for the opportunity to appear. That would mean that you're some kind of a magician, right? Instead, think of yourself as a chess player. Your other shots have one job. They're not to win. They're not to be pretty. They are to force a trigger ball to your weapon, right? If your forehand is your weapon, use your backhand to pull your opponent wide, open up the court. If your serve is your weapon, use the first ball to set up the second strike forehand. You have to understand the geometry of the court. The court is a rectangle of opportunity. You don't hit into the open space. You hit into the space that forces your opponent to hit your trigger ball, and you can deploy your weapon. This is a system. It's mechanical. It's logical. when you step onto the court, you are not playing tennis, you are running a program. Step 1, neutralize. Step 2, force the error. Step 3, weaponize. Become a specialist in the setup of your weapon, right? The glory is the winner, but it's the background team that's the actual backbone of the system. So just think of somebody like Michael Jackson. He's a great singer, but his agent has to negotiate the contracts and set up the recording studio time, and he's got a whole lot of background work to do in order for Michael to get out on stage and be the superstar. So you want to think about, how can I use my shots to eventually get myself to that trigger ball over and over and over again. Okay. The third pillar, pillar number 3 of our system, is going to be called the territory. So you have to be ruthless with your court position. This is where the timid fall and the legends thrive. We all know the textbook position: stand just left or right of the middle, cover the lines, be balanced. If you want to dominate, you've got to cheat over, right? You have to steal a little bit of territory. You have to make them feel that you are specifically hanging out on the side of the court, so it's easier for you to step around and deploy the weapon, because that is going to create pressure. It's going to make them see the court and aim for that small space that you've left over, right? You've got to be greedy. Cheat over to your backhand side. Run around. Take, especially if you're 40-15 up, take a big gamble. Show them that you're willing to work extremely hard to take a situation and make it one there that your weapon is deployed, right? You've got to take that first step early. You've got to take the ball early. You are not waiting for a chance to use your weapon. You are creating it by eliminating the time your opponent has to breathe. So every time they look up, they've got to see something like, oh, here he's looking for that weapon again. Look, he's looking to jump around. If I give him an inch, he's going to be all over that thing, right? When you do this, you shrink the court for them, right? When you take the ball early, you compress their reaction time. Add pace to that mix, and suddenly they're starting to shorten their swing. They're starting to block at the ball, and they're feeling uncomfortable, right? So just remember, you're not necessarily playing the ball against, or in this situation, you're playing the clock. And you want to take as much time away from them as possible, and you want them to see as few backhands and other shots as possible if your forehand is your weapon, right? Yes, there is risk. Yes, you're going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, right? If you are comfortable, then you're probably too far back. You're probably too neutral. Domination is a mentality. It is a space controlling thing. If you want to dominate someone in the boxing ring, you don't hide out in the corner. You go towards them, right? The space between you and your opponent, you want to shrink it. You want to make it feel tiny. You want to make it feel like there's nowhere they can go without the risk of finding that weapon, right? Okay, so fill the area, fill the court with your weapon. Move on purpose and stand with menace. Pillar number 4. I think this one's the most important. The predator. You have to develop killer instinct. We've got the drills, we've got the system, we've got the court position. Now we need the mind of someone who is a weapons deployer, right? The most dangerous place on the tennis court for any of us is the space in between our ears. Let me say it again. The most dangerous place, or the most dangerous opponent, happens to live in between our ears, right? Most players on big points are going to play safe. They pray for errors. They go into their shell. They retreat. They hit it in. On big points, your first thought should not be don't miss. It should be, how do I get to my weapon? You have to trust your weapon more than you fear missing. And that's where the forge that we spoke about earlier comes into play, right? You want to train it to the point where it's like, I know that using my weapon is my best chance of success, right? To do this, you have to love pressure. You have to enjoy those tight situations when the match is on the line. The player with the best shot often doesn't win, right? The player with the courage to use their best shot wins, okay? And I really want you to think about that, right? The person with the best shot does not win unless he's willing to use it when he needs it, right? Okay. You want your weapon to become part of your identity on the tennis court. When you're scared, the world sees it. When you are confident, the world sees that too. If you're planning to be someone who uses their weapon, then you have to project confidence. And if you go away from your weapon in the big moment, people are going to say, oh, well, they don't trust that weapon. They don't want to use it when everything is on the line, which is definitely not going to project confidence, right? Your opponent is waiting for that moment. Good players know that somebody with a huge weapon can use it all the way till 5-all and then suddenly start playing it safe, right? So you have to get away from that. Stop being a player with a weapon. Become a player that's defined by it. Own the fear. Embrace the big moment. The killer instinct isn't a trait, it's a decision. And I want you to make that decision. All right? And that is the best advice I can give you to becoming a player who dominates with their weapon.